What are we drinking here? Cold tea, which I think cold tea for most people would be like,
Ooh, I don't like
what are you serving me? Cold tea. Why don't you like me very much? So, but do you drink like tea like this a lot? Cold?
Yeah, I mean, it's delicious.
It is delicious. So I can't be wrong. What is it?
I think people, if you say the word iced tea, they're like, oh, yeah, delicious. And you associate it with strong black tea and a lot of sugar.
That's true. Iced tea, yeah.
Like some sweet southern iced tea. Still to this day, Americans drink more iced tea than they do hot tea. But I started doing this. This isn't. I'm renowned for name dropping because I was such an idiot. But
don't worry, it's a consistent theme on this podcast. Everyone name drops.
I'm going to do it straight off the bat. Like Dave Chang, Mama Fuko, back in the days in Sandbar, and like Dave Broom did the not Dave Broom, Dave Arnold did the cocktail bar at the back.
Was that Booker and Dax?
Yeah, Booker and Dax.
Yeah.
Dave wanted I said I wanted to do the tea. He was like, I don't want any hot tea. I just want cold tea. And I was like, what? Iced tea? And I don't know how to do that. And then I discovered all about the really sweet and hot tea, chilled down, loads of sugar, and it's just it's one of the things I want every bartender to know as well. Like, if you put sugar in tea, it is not going to stop it from oxidizing. It's going to deteriorate. It's just going to disguise the flavor. It's going to stop it going moldy, right? Or it'll help it become kombucha. It'll help it ferment. But if you put hot water on tea, break the cell structure, and the leaf will start to oxidize like a cut apple will go brown.
Yeah.
So if you see a hot tea on a chilled tea in a bar on a speed rail, by the time it's deteriorating so much, you can tell every 20 seconds. If you did a tasting, you'd be able to tell the difference in every 20 minutes. 20 seconds, sorry. 20 minutes.
I was going to say 20 seconds. Okay. I mean, maybe.
Name dropping and exaggeration. There's like, definitely good at those. No, every 20 minutes. So if you take a cold extraction, you don't break the cell structure. You have osmosis. So if the leaf is a semi-permeable cell wall, and if you go back to your school days and osmosis, you have a concentration on one side that's inside the leaf, and then the water on the other side is a dilution, and nature will try and...
it's pressure, basically, isn't it, between the two?
Yeah, and just a concentration and a dilution. Yeah. Nature wants to make it equal. So all the amino acids and the carbohydrates and the delicious polyphenols and delicious
flavonoids.
Yes, thank you. That's what I'm looking for. They will pass through the cell wall because they're soluble through a semi-permeable cell wall into the water, and you'll get this lovely stable extraction that won't oxidize.
You don't get that oxidative effect, so you can brew tea cold, is what you're saying,
and it will
last for a long time.
It's completely stable, like 3 days, 4 days.
We're getting into sort of processes and methods, which maybe we'll get to in more detail later with hot brewing as well, but just while we're on it, so what's the sort of general process for brewing a cold tea? Do you change the ratio that you normally do for a hot one? And how long does the infusion go on for?
So depending on the shape of the tea leaf and how much surface area to volume it has, it should be, and with a rule of thumb, like in 12 hours, you'll have equilibrium. If it was a rolled oolong, like with a tightly rolled ball, like a gunpowder, that could take 48 hours. But really, or even longer, but 24 is going to be 100% for most teas. And then but overnight is going to be good enough for 80% of teas. So you just put it in the fridge overnight and then you strain it off. And you use much less tea. So it's much more cost effective. And it's really super delicious.
I mean, it's so tasty. Is this got jasmine? Yeah.
White jasmine.
Yeah, white jasmine. Yeah. See? I'm not an idiot. I do know a couple of things.
Yeah, and this is what's so amazing is imagine if you were trying to enfleurage something, you need thousands and thousands of flowers. So this is already done. This is a tiny little bud, a white tea bud, and it's picked from the bimal varietal, which has it's quite a big bud that has lots of hairs on the outside. It's a downy little spring bud. So imagine your tea bush in Fujian, in Fuding, around there. In the winter, you got hibernation. And the tea is going to go to status, and it puts all its sugars and polyphenols and all that good shit we talked about before into the roots, and then waits for the spring. And then in the spring, it produces first new leaf bud. So a silver tip or a silver needle is a leaf bud. It will open to a new set of leaves. But in the very beginning of spring, it's not photosynthesizing yet. It's using all those sugars and polyphenols and all the good sugar that's been stored over the winter. So in that lovely first bud, and before the leaf opened to photosynthesize, you pick it. So it's a mature leaf bud, amazing, delicious, sweet, and with all the potential of winter in that first new leaf. And it's got a 5-day picking period. Super special. And then you scent it with fresh flowers, and you pick the flowers in the afternoon, early evening, because it's a night scented flower. But it's got to be a mature flower bud, but not open. Otherwise it'll have let.
So this is the jasmine now we're talking about, yeah.
And so then you take you've got your dry tea, and all that happens to the white tea is it's dried and it's just dried. That's
just
it.
Dried.
No processing. Then you take it to the.
Is that the definition of white tea? It's just dried leaves.
Yeah. And a good white tea would be that first spring leaf. A white silver tip could be picked all through the year because the tea will flush and produce new leaves through the year.
Okay, so with the white, it's the first of the spring, and
that would be
and then with other teas, it keeps on producing these tips, but that's not the first. So yeah.
I mean, and you can call it a silver tip. There's no fast rules on these things, but it wouldn't be the really delicious one.
Okay, got you.
So you lay the tea out, these little lovely downy buds, on a bamboo frame about as wide as your arms can reach around. And you put a layer of tea and then a layer of flowers, a layer of tea and then a flowers.
Oh, so they do them together.
And then they seal the room. It's summertime, 90% humidity, and the flowers open and the tea absorbs the scent of the flower. And then in the morning, it's quite a romantic story, but a heartbreaking one, because of course the flowers are spent and used and are discarded in the morning, and they make sure the tea is dry, and then you repeat the process every night with fresh flowers for 6 nights.
Wow, so there's this sort of dynamic process taking place where the doors are closed. It's almost like
it's nighttime
holy,
together.
like sacrosanct, like seal it off, and then these flowers are opening in the dark and like moving the tea leaves, obviously fragrancing them, infusing into them like aromatically. Then the next day you come in, this change has happened, you remove the flowers back out, and then you put fresh blossoms in.
The next night. You wait for the next night. You make sure the tea is dry during the day, and then you repeat the process over 6 nights. I mean, if you go to a Chinese restaurant and you have a jasmine tea, it might be a black tea that's been scented with flowers. It's more likely to be a black tea that has, or a green tea that has an oil or a flavouring on it. This is...
If I buy a cheap jasmine tea, that's likely what's happened. They've taken tea and then put some oil on it.
Or an oil, yeah. And this scenting of taking this very amazing white tea that only has a 5-day picking window every year, and then scenting it with jasmine flowers over 6 nights is insane, but amazing, and very affordable in comparison with, very, very aged whiskey or a fancy champagne.
Let's not get into competing with alcohol just yet. I like that. I love that.
But it is affordable. And what is amazing, it's an amazing transfer of flavour. So that's kind of, if this tea that we're drinking now is used all through Noma, for instance, not just in the non-alcoholic pairing, but also in dashies, in fermentation, in all areas. They use double the amount back of house and they do front of house.
And there's like practically no astringency to it whatsoever. It's just sort of slightly sweet, very floral, fragrant, a little bit green and fresh as well. And in fact, I think this wouldn't be as good hot, or warm. Like chilled.
It's delicious, but it is delicious hot, but it's just very different.
Yeah.
The aromatizing of the jasmine is amazing in the hot tea, and there's a bit more flavor of sort of fresh peas and fresh cut grass of the tea. The tea different, get more astringency as well, because you need hot water to dissolve some of those more astringent plants.
Yeah.
So it's a bit more deep and nuanced, and that's something that I get when I'm talking to sommeliers. They sometimes say, "Oh, but it's a bit thin, right? I can't use that as a pairing because it's lovely and refreshing and great and maybe a great aperitif, but just like this, it's not." So I was at Madrid Fusion and I got that, and so this year I made a blend to show. I've got something here for you as well. This is a blend of 2 teas. This is a tea from the Himalayas from Junchiabari in Nepal, an amazing garden. The farmer is called Bachan, and his brother Lochan. And this is blended with this Himalayan spring. It's like a very, very early first flush blended with a little bit of Japanese Sencha, which is a longer steamed Sencha. So when you steam it a bit longer, it makes it more fragile. It increases flavour, but it makes it quite brittle, and you get these broken pieces which don't look as good, but cold extract really well. And you see how we've got much more mouthfeel here, much more body.
Yeah, it really does.
And that could easily compete in terms of, a wine. In terms of,
I mean, texturally, it's very similar to a wine with that body and that sort of weight and mouthfeel to it. It feels weighty.
Yeah, it's got legs. It lasts on the palate. It's also got those tannins that you want to make you a little bit thirsty, so you want to take another sip or a bite of food.
I bet you're going absolutely nuts about this whole non-alc trend for all these sort of bottled products. And you're like, Jesus, guys, fucking wake up. Look,
You could do this.
we can do this. We can do this with tea.
Why are we shipping all this glass of water around the world? It does make me mad. Like, obviously I work with lots of restaurants around the world and they are doing this and they have to do it. But like, you could do this at home. Like you can have access to the same teas they're using at Noma or at Cezanne in Tokyo or whatever. We sell them. You could really, it's very simple to make. You just put some tea and cold water together and you put it in the fridge overnight. And then you don't even need to strain it because it will settle and you can pour it off, or you can do it in, what chefs use, something called a super bag to stocks. You can just do it.
You can go
like
en
that.
masse, yeah.
Take it out
Yeah.
in the morning.
Like massive tea bags, aren't they? Yeah.
Yeah. I need to talk about tea bags.
We'll get to tea bags. Look, let's start by talking about types of tea, because you mentioned white tea, you mentioned Sencha. So can we just go through the sort of different categories and explain what they are? They're all made from the same plant, right? It's all Camellia sinensis. Okay, so that's important to establish. Are there sort of varieties within that, though, sort of sub-varieties, or is everything kind of basically the same plant?
That's a really wonderful question. And there are herbal teas, of course. We call them teas, but they're not teas. They're infusions. And they would be called a tisane. Excuse me. They'd be called a tisane in French. Or anyway, if we put it in hot water, we call it tea. But like mint is a herb. Lemon verbena, chamomile, they're herbs. And then there's the tea plant, Camellia sinensis. And that's white tea, green tea, oolong tea, Earl Grey tea, English breakfast. Those teas. And they are all made from the same plant. There are two main varietals. There's the Camellia sinensis, which is China, and that's all we knew about for a really, really long time. And then, the British got pretty excited about tea, and they looked around for places to grow this tea that they'd stolen. Robert Fortune had stolen from China completely illegally, and all that, anyway, colonial nonsense and dastardly behaviour. And he looked at the other side of the Himalayas, and they're like, oh, let's grow tea here in India because we've got domination here. And they discovered, oh, look, this plant that we've spent all this money and time and effort to try and steal exists on the other side, and that's Camellia sinensis, the Samaka.
And it was already growing in India.
Yeah, and people were making drinks from it, but not in the traditional way we think of tea. That technology came over from China. And I think in the 10th century...
What sort of drinks were they making?
Just they were kind of bashing it in a pestle and mortar and kind of cooking with it.
Right.
Not really infusing it.
Not brewing it, and with the whole sort of...
No. Or maybe there was, but it's not very well documented or not known about. It wasn't a common practice in India. I mean, it's still, if you can't have access to clean water, sometimes tea is a luxury. And it still is in lots of parts of India. But I think the 10th century, the Chinese shared it with Japan. So there was tea in Japan as well. But it really essentially that the Camellia sinensis and Samaka were the main route, and then from there, like roses or vines, you can start hybridizing. And that really happened a lot when the British got involved. They were like, oh, let's hybridize, let's make all kinds of things. And then they did this crazy ass thing, and if there's one good thing the British brought for tea, is that they started to blend, which, you think about it, is quite insane. Because if you have tea in China, the oolong from a Taiwanese oolong comes from Anxi, and you would never in a million years blend that with another oolong, say a Da Hong Pao from the Wushan, as you would not blend two wines. Like if you say the words to a sommelier, blended wine.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's just crazy.
This is from a single estate, which could happen in a tea as well. You could blend harvest from that happened before, but never from two different places or two different types. So the British did start doing that. They were like, oh, we'll take the Indian tea, which is a bit malty and rich, and we'll blend it with this really floral Chinese tea, and we'll
find something that's got some balance there.
Yeah, we'll make something better than the sum of its parts. Yeah. And this is where it becomes interesting to the bartender, is the first ever whiskey blenders had learnt their skill of tea blending.
Yeah, Johnny Walker was a tea blender. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I guess it is a similar thing, isn't it? You're taking sort of disparate, quite stylized products from different parts, produced in different ways for whatever reason, and maybe even different varieties. And then you're going, right, well, if we mix these together, we can kind of create balance, like you say. How did you describe the sort of Assamica? It's sort of more earthy, malty, and then you go over to China, it's a bit more fragrant. So you mix the two together and you get a bit of both. But also there's this whole, like, trying to for consistency, right? So season to season, if the product changes slightly through blending, you can then iron out those discrepancies, and you then have a consistent product, and then you can put your name to it. And I guess that's how the sort of big tea houses came about, right?
Yeah, and they gave consistency to customers, and you could build your brand, and you got loyalty. And of course, that was the same thing with the Highland Hooch. You could build consistency and delicious flavour and make something. But this is the thing that I think is lost, is that originally blends were there to be made better than the sum of their parts. They were to make something even more delicious. Whereas now I think sometimes blends, especially in tea and also in whiskey, but blends are there just to make bland conformity and cheap, and they're there for volume, and they're not really there for incredible flavour.
Yeah.
And I know that there's going to be people hating on me for saying that. They're like, yeah, but I love my blended English breakfast tea bag that's from the big brand. And I said that, there's a lot to love in there, but there's more to tea than industrially processed and industrially blended and industrially bagged.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll talk about the differences, I think, a little bit later as to which your favourite is out of PG Tips and Tetley. So just going back to it talks about China and India. Is China? No.
The levels of tea.
Yeah, and we'll get there as well. So is it sort of understood that tea originates in China, like the plant is endemic to China
and India
and India, right?
The
Himalaya region. Okay, cool. So how do we get to the different categories of tea? White, green.
So it's exactly like grapes. You've got a single plant that has different varieties within it, and now there are hundreds of different varietals of tea, and you can still create them just as you can with grapes or roses. But how you process them, so white wine, red wine, sherry, whatever, the same thing. White tea is the first, just dried. And then green tea, you're doing something called kill green. You're trying to stop oxidation by applying heat very early on after picking. And it can be done in a Japanese style, which is with steam, or a Chinese style, which is with dry heat, like a wok. Traditionally, it would be in a wok.
So you're kind of cooking it?
Yeah. But you're trying to sort of stop it from oxidizing. You're kind of seal the freshness, the greenness in. And then you've got oolong tea, which is partially oxidized, and you control the oxidation. So you have green oolongs like Tai Guanyin, the Iron Goddess of Mercy, right through to very dark oolongs like the Da Hong Pao, which is closest to a black tea. So one side will be close to a green tea, and then you can go all the way through the spectrum of oxidation, and you'll get completely different flavors through them. And you can actually get the most complexity of flavor, I think, in an oolong. You get really high tropical notes and super roasty ones. And that's really by careful control of oxidation.
So just break down the methods you mentioned about steaming versus sort of applying heat. What does that exactly look like in terms of a tea producer when they're doing this?
Yeah, well, in Japan it's quite funny. I mean, like, it really does go through high steam, and then it gets dried in a big kind of mosquito net tent. And
how long does it take?
A few seconds.
Really? So it's really just a flash of heat?
Yeah, flash of steam and then drying. Whereas it's more of in traditional Chinese methodology, it's like hands in a wok. It's much more small batch, and you're applying sometimes pressure to shape the leaf, but make sure it's sort of evenly toasted, kind of.
And then, so organoleptically, how would you what's the difference in the
I don't know
cup?
what that word is. What was that
Flavor,
word?
taste-wise, like aroma, all that sort of. How is
Say the word again. You need to learn it.
organoleptically? Organoleptically. So, from a flavor point of view, how do the two different methods of producing a green tea differ in the cup? Steam versus.
So Chinese styles are much lighter, sort of more fragrant, brighter, lighter, like clean, fresh, whereas the Japanese really prefer a more vegetal, asparagus, even buttery notes you can get out of the steaming. And that Shincha, we had that longer steam, which makes the leaf fragile and makes it look like a pretty shitty Sencha because it's all broken. That really brings out more umami and sweet notes. I'm a real fan of that. And they also control chlorophyll and umami notes through shading. So like a gyokuro or a matcha is shaded before being picked, so you can control the greenness in something before you've even picked it. So that is also an factor.
So they cover it in sheets.
No, traditionally it would have been bamboo, and now it's like kind of mosquito nets. And sometimes actually it's a full covering, depends on the farmer and their methodologies. But you're reducing the sunshine so that the plant will go into stress and try and produce more chlorophyll so it can photosynthesize.
Wow, this sort of manipulation of nature for flavor is kind of wild.
It is kind of wild, and also so it really depends when you pick, how you pick, and then how you process. So it starts with the soil, of course. You've got to have. Depends. Naturally, like the Da Hong Pao is on a very rocky, mineral rich, as opposed to the high, sort of more lush Angshi area where Da Hong Pao, Twai Gan Yin, just to use these two as an example. So the soil is different for start. Then it's how you look after the soil. Are you using agrochemicals and where the rainfall is coming? But everything you know about terroir for wine is going to be true. Like what's the pH of the soil? How deep is the gradient? When does the sun hit the field in the morning? So field to field, area to area will be completely different. And then, so when you pick it, where it is in its development, because you've got much more, like a grape is only ready when it's ripe. But whereas tea, you can pick it when it's very young. You can wait till it's a little bit older. You could do an autumn pick when the plant has produced several stages of leaves rather than just the first leaf. And then you've got what do you do with it? So you've got your roasting, your heat sealing, your kilgreen, your oxidation, and then to make black teas, you've got you roast it. You're bringing out, you want full oxidation, you increase the oxidation, and then you heat it again, you toast it, you roast it.
How do you increase the oxidation for the black tea?
Well, you crush it.
Right, you break it up. Yeah.
You could do it it could be a whole leaf.
So you're exposing the inside of the leaf to air.
Yeah, the oils in the leaf, exactly.
Okay.
And then the last step you could do is you could ferment it. So that would be a pu'erh. So
So is that the only? All the other teas are not fermented. No. Pu'erh is the only ferment. Or are there other ones like pu'erh?
No, there is only pu'erh, and I do think so. I think it might be an intentional confusion because I think the Chinese have always been quite secretive about methodology. You weren't allowed to export the tea bush. It was only the finished tea for thousands of years, and now they making green teas and making teas is like it's a skill and it's protected, and so I think they used the word fermentation when they meant oxidation on purpose. Because people still use it. You read books about tea and you're like, oh, this is a fermented tea, and it's absolutely not. Yeah,
it's overused, I think, possibly in tea production, because I've definitely heard it assigned to black teas before and that kind of thing.
There's so much bullshit about tea, it just gets repeated. So someone writes a book and then someone repeats the book, it's the same in booze.
Yeah, sure. So you talked a little bit about terroir and agriculture. What generally growing conditions do tea plants like?
Mountains.
Okay.
It needs sun at the right time, and it needs cool at the right time as well. But it is very dependent on having its right moisture. It could be sea level, but it just happens that the sun and the moisture are at the right growing times. I've got this amazing gardener we work with in New Zealand in Waikato, near Hamilton, and they've imported these bushes from Taiwan, which was a huge undertaking to get them into New Zealand. Only the very hardiest got through
Just from the transportation, they don't like.
No, from the quarantine periods, huge long quarantine periods.
Okay.
And they would just basically abandon on an airfield for a really long time, I think, from what I gather. Anyway, some of them survived. They built this amazing tea garden about 25, maybe 30 years ago now. Extraordinary, like world-class tea. But where they are, the frost can come at a really terrible stage in the growing, and it could be that they could destroy the harvest completely. So they're building fans and things to stop the air freezing, and they've even had to have helicopters fly over at a certain key nights to stop their air freezing. Isn't that amazing?
Whoa.
And in Sakamoto-san in Kagoshima, who makes our gyokuro, he actually puts water on the leaves. He actually sprays them when it's really cold at certain times so that it can't get colder than freezing. So because the water on the leaf will freeze.
Yeah.
And so that's
then the inside is never going to get colder than that. Jeez.
And be slightly under freezing.
Yeah.
So that's another method. But other farmers say that's crazy and it doesn't work. I mean, he's a genius. He has the most amazing soil. If you look at Red Tea's Instagram and you see him, there's a video of him putting his standing height bamboo stick into the soil, and he can just push it in. His soil is
That's
so
soft.
Amazing.
Wow.
And if people think it would all rush away, but actually the water, when it rains, absorbs into the water, and he's got the most incredible garden. He's bonkers.
Where in the world is tea grown? It seems like it's mostly Asia you're mentioning here. Is it grown elsewhere?
Yeah, so the British stole it from Asia, and then, they stole it from China. They took it to India. They took it to Sri Lanka, and it's now grown across the world. It's grown in South America, it's grown in East Africa, and I think the biggest producer in the world is Kenya. I think East Africa is the biggest producer, and no one even knows. Like, I was just in Malawi in January with the president of the Tea Association, and I've been working with Malawi really since 2009, I think, 2008, 2009, and I've seen standard living decrease rather than increase, and yet it's the second biggest export, and it's the second biggest employer for the nation.
Is most of this going into like bulk tea products?
Yeah, and you don't even know. Like, if I gave you a bottle of wine and I said, it's red, you were like, okay. And I said, oh, no, it's single origin. It's French. I'm so proud of myself. Yeah. I mean, that's as most as you might find about tea. Like, it's green and it's Chinese or Japanese. But with English breakfast blends, it's even further away. With black teas, we have no idea of origin. You just know your brand. It's not coming from Yorkshire.
Yeah.
I mean, and they make it's very, very hard to find out. And they say, it's like Rainforest Alliance or Fair Trade or whatever, but there's no connection with farmers or origin. And it's very easy to exploit people you have no connection with. And life expectancy in Malawi is in the 50s in tea communities, and it's one of the poorest nations in the world, and they're completely reliant on tea. That's their whole economy is built on.
And of course, the margins are just tiny because it's all they're being screwed down by the big importers. Or
I think they think it's about 7 companies control about 90% of the tea into the global north.
And are those companies separate from the big tea brands that we know, or are they kind of in bed with each other? How does it work? Do you have these sort of brokerages that are huge and then they sort of act as an in-between? Is that it?
The brokers are the main players, but there are companies that would act both ways. So Unilever was one of the big players, but it was so toxic as an asset. There's so much poverty, abuse, sexual abuse on gardens, with all kinds of shit going on. Instead of trying to fix it, they just sold it all off asset strip. So Unilever is no longer a player in the tea, but they were. Like, there are big, huge multinationals like that, and then there are, mostly big brokers, and they will just supply the tea. It's complicated to buy tea from small, marginalized communities around the world, but that's the fun bit. Direct trade is the answer.
Yeah, and you can get really good stuff from these people.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing for the last 20 years, more than that, traveling around the world, finding amazing producers, as you would wine. Of course, there are in more far-flung corners of the world, but there's amazing people making really good stuff for quality rather than quantity. And you can buy it for them and you can give them the money.
Yeah, for sure.
They get all the money. And, I'm buying for like between 20 and 2,000 times the price of commodity tea.
Yeah.
Yeah. And commodity tea is controlled by a commodity market, not by a farmer. Like you can't make that work. The price, and this is true, I spoke to the president of the Tea Association this January. In 1970, the price of a commodity tea, so the lowest price of tea in Malawi, was $20 something, $20.73.
For how much?
For a kilo, sorry. And this year, it didn't reach $1.
Oh my God.
And in today's money, that would be between $90 and $120 a kilo, depending on the metric you used. But, it's manipulated so much. There's overproduction in certain regions. And rather than going to a farm that you love and buying the tea and saying, like, I guarantee you this price, they just wait for the, commodity market to be manipulated down, and they can get it cheaper. And they just don't bid on the tea. You've got 7 people in the room, pretty much. Yeah, so it is a business built on poverty that doesn't need to be, and wasn't.
So what is the solution to that then? I mean, everyone needs to start spending more money on their tea so that people get paid fairly, and
a bit like chocolate and coffee. Yeah, know where it comes from, who's making it, and what relation is the person you're buying it from to the person who's making it, and like, is anyone getting screwed over in the middle? And we live in a world where everything is super open. You can't hide anything. I think if you find a tea company that knows where it's coming from, is working with the farmers, and trying to do something good with them, you can definitely find that out. You look at their Instagram, Google search. It's pretty. There are a few brilliant people out there doing great things.
Yeah. Okay.
And there are lots of amazing farms. And so there's room for a huge amount of growth. It's not like I need to be the only tea company in the world.
When you're working with some of these producers, what is the sort of consistent theme that you look for in terms of expecting quality? What is it people do? What's good practice in a tea garden?
These are great questions. This is wonderful. The most important thing is flavour. I mean, if I'm going to make a revolution happen, and this needs to happen, like this is what I'm doing. I don't really have a tea company. I really want to make a revolution in the tea world. You need at least to taste amazing. You're not going to like that. That's got to wow you. I've got to be able to wow all the sommeliers. Yeah, I've got to wow all the sommeliers at Mid-Infusion, haven't I? I mean, like it has to be good enough that people like René Redzepi are going to champion it, or chefs all around the world are going to say their voice counts. That's why I work with them, because people listen to them. Like, this is good enough, and it's world class, right? It's got to taste amazing, and then it's got to come from a farmer, not from a big industrial plantation. I don't use that word. I work with farms and gardens, and the people live on that garden and farm. I don't want somebody living millions of miles away taking the profit. So I like to work with farmers who work on their land, who work with their community. And then I look for organic farming practices. I don't look for organic stamp because it's way too expensive. You really can't do it. And if you're in a very far away mountainside, the person who comes and does the certification and that's a for-profit business that it's outsourced by the organic, and the same with fair trade. It's all outsourced, and that person then becomes incredibly powerful, and there's room for corruption. Yeah, sure. So it's also outside people's skill sets and capabilities to have all the paperwork and all that. So anyway, I ask farmers to work as using organic farming practices, and most in tea generally is, because it's up in a mountainside and it's not as complicated as coffee, for instance, where there's a lot of pests and problems. Tea is quite easy to grow. You're going to have, I mean, there are exceptions, but like it's pretty easy to be organic. I'm not saying easy, that's a terribly wrong word. It's very possible to grow very good quality tea organically. And a lot of the farms I come across have been doing that for generations and centuries. But they just don't have the certification because of all the, like you say, the rigmarole and so we get the tea tested. We ask them to do that, and we get it tested in Switzerland or Germany and take the responsibility ourselves. And then I can say it's organically farmed, but I can't say it's organic. That's fine. Yeah. And then because I really believe that the long-term health of this, long-term sustainability of tea, we have to look after the soil and the flora and fauna. If you use loads of industrial chemicals, and I've seen it, like DDT in tea fields, like nothing else lives, nothing else grows, and the people who are picking the tea or spraying DDT on the tea, it goes into their rivers, it goes into their some of the pesticides are really harmful for every other farmer in the area and people, and their lungs and their water supply and their kidneys and all sorts of stuff. And I go to these places, I've been doing this for 20 years, and I've seen the effects. Yeah. It's longer.
Well, then back to that lifespan, expected lifespan in Kenya in the 50s, right? That's probably a contributor of this industrial commodity tea, right? It's going to have all the pesticides and herbicides.
Yeah. And there's nothing else growing as well. Like there's a monocrop.
Yeah,
So you want as much agroforestry as possible. You know, you want other trees. And trees are really great for cell structure. So tea is a tree, right? But it's kept fairly short. He could grow and be quite scraggly bushed, quite tall, like but a scraggly tree. And
but you wouldn't be able to pick it.
Yeah, so you keep it quite short. But having other trees through the tea fields gives shade, which is getting more and more important, and soil structure, because obviously, you know, the roots of a tree are kind of equal to its height. So you want those really long, deep tap roots from a tree so that if there's flooding, which is another problem of climate change, then you're going to keep the soil structure.
Hold it together, yeah.
Yeah, so it's been, and then just diversity of income as well as flora and fauna. So most of our farms we encourage and do generally grow herbs alongside. So it might be lemon verbena growing, or it could be hibiscus, or pepper vines, and all kinds of things.
Do you ever feel like the other plants growing nearby impact the flavour of the tea?
100%. I think so. And one of the most interesting ones we're just about to launch this Christmas is a guy in Sri Lanka who's taken over an old abandoned tea farm, and there's lots of scraggly old bushes that have gone crazy, and there are vanilla orchids growing through the tea, and he's now scenting the tea with the vanilla orchids from the fields. It's insane, and it has this crazy extra note of tulsi. And I'm wondering, I haven't been there yet. I'm about to go, but like I'm thinking that there must be holy basil growing around, because I can taste that note there. I'm like, where else? Well, maybe it's just an incredible combination of flavors that the vanilla is bringing out this kind of cinnamon tulsi
Plus the tea, and then together they do something weird.
Yeah, because that happens too.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a blend is never the sum of its parts.
No, it can create new things that you weren't expecting.
Yeah, really, I'm hoping that some big whiskey blender is going to say, hey, we really want you to come and blend some whiskey, because I'm already doing that.
You should 100% do that.
I'm doing it at home. I've always, my parents are dead and I inherited their decanters. So I put whiskey in a decanter, and then obviously as soon as you put it in a decanter, you're like, oh, I've got a bit of this, and then you start blending, and then you start getting. I mean, I've got quite obsessive about it now. Yeah, but go back to that would be fun.
How long does a tea plant take to mature to you can start harvesting it? And how long does the lifespan like?
So it depends where. So the higher you've got, like if you're really up in Nepal, and it can be quite a slow growth. It'd be much quicker down in East Africa. It can take sort of 3 to 5 years to produce, and it could last forever. Like there's some of the green tea we get from Terroir in Malawi is from a 1921 varietal, but I think the ones from Sri Lanka that we get, this wilder tea, is coming from possibly even like the 1890s. It's possible. We don't really know.
What the bushes were planted in the 1890s?
Yeah, and certainly in China, some of those there's a trade in ancient tea trees, but for commercial uses, they can change them every like 30 years to get high production.
You just get better yield on a newer plant.
Yeah. But often what happens is like tea plants do, a little tree amongst others might die, and then a new tree is planted, and some of the farms I'm working with now are using seed to go. Then seed is slow, right? If you can grow much quicker, 3 years is going to come from a cutting.
Yeah.
Whereas a seed is really slow. It's going to add a few years to that, or a period of time. I'm not sure.
Do they do the root? They take a root stock and then cut it and then merge it on. Is that what they do?
I think they just take a cutting and grow roots from the cutting.
From the cutting, it just comes out. Yeah.
I think so. I'm pretty certain. Yeah. But don't hold me. I'm not a biologist or a farmer. I'm just like looking and seeing what I see.
Yeah.
But I know that the seed has a much deeper taproot.
Right.
And so those are the better. So when they infill, they try to use only seed grown trees, because that's also going to help the soil structure.
Okay. Yeah. Because you get longer roots. Right.
Yeah.
And then so in terms of harvesting, let's go through that bit. Is it consistent across all teas, even commodity teas, that it's just the new leaves that are harvested?
Great. So it's a bit like wine. You've been out in the wine fields and you've seen the machines coming and just taking everything, and then you've seen people picking wine and choosing grapes. It's exactly the same. So commodity is often just machine harvested and just take the top off the.
Right, so they leave enough leaves so the plant survives, but they're basically just shaving everything off the top.
Yeah.
It's like a buzz cut.
Yeah. Whereas you really want a good pick is 3 leaves in a bud. So the new bud underneath and the 2 leaves underneath.
Right.
That's like the essential pick.
Okay.
And it'll be different through the from the spring pick you could pick it when it's really small. An autumn leaf might be a little bigger. You pick later for oolongs.
And this has to be done by hand. There's no way of
The good stuff.
machine.
Although in Japan there is a real problem with labor, so you can't get labor in the countryside. It's very expensive. No one wants to do it. It's only the old ladies, and there are old ladies mostly and some old men who pick tea for the really good stuff. So Mrs. Moriuchi-san, who makes our sencha in Shizuoka, she has a group of friends and they go out and they pick. But that's a small kind of family farm. But if you're a big matcha farm and you need shit tons of matcha quickly because suddenly the world's gone on fire for matcha.
I know, like, tell me about it. What's that coffee chain with matcha, the Blank Street?
Everyone has got, everyone.
It's ridiculous. Like, London is just full of matcha lattes at the moment.
Everywhere. Mexico City, Melbourne.
Let's talk about matcha in a minute. Let's get onto that because I do want to talk a little bit about the cult of matcha.
Oh, yeah, so they're picking there in Japan. They have quite sophisticated machines and they're developing very good methods of picking and
picking those top 2 leaves past the bud.
Yeah, with these machines, and they hover around the whole side of the bush. I mean, there's a lot of amazing technology that's come, but the worrying thing is like that's needed in the first world. Like that would be great for New Zealand and for Japan, where nobody is exploited for tea. Like. The cost, that, like Japanese tea is expensive, right? Is it better than tea from Malawi? No, absolutely not. I can give you a world-class tea that's on the restaurant menu right beside Japanese gyokuro would be like, say, a Malawi antler from Satemwa. World-class teas, right? Same. But the terroir, the protections for labor and land in Japan are there. And in a very poor nation, there's room for exploitation, and most people don't get the value of their tea, and it's not because it's the quality, it's because there are no protections.
And is that then reflected in the price? The Japanese tea is getting more expensive because no one's being exploited.
So I'm really worried that when this technology comes through, Japan has to develop technology to pick its tea, and there's enough demand. I mean, demand has gone insane, that it will necessarily follow that technology will get better and better and better. Then they would take that technology to Africa, where they really need the jobs and the skilled jobs. It's absolutely crucial to the economy. But like, if you were a big industrial agribusiness and you could put a machine there instead of a person,
and then you make everyone redundant, and then you've got problems with the communities.
Not just problems. It would be devastating. Yeah. It will millions of people. There are 15 million people who work in tea in the world today, roughly, and most of them are picking tea for their living and crafting it, and that's an amazing job, and they need those jobs. Take them away, and I think millions of people will lose their livelihood and maybe their lives. It's that thin. Like there's no room. They can't just grow something else.
So what can be done about that? That sort of seems inevitable, really.
I don't know. I've just been worrying about it, and I just think, well, I hope that the people who work in tea will value people's lives over profit. That's what we have to hope, that the world is moving in that way, and that customers will choose that way, because we do have power. I don't want to give you this sense of like, oh, it's all a disaster, because it's not a disaster. Tea was once bought for quality, like wine. No one starves in wine. Like, we understand the value of a crafted wine, and we're prepared to pay for it. And I think that if we just buy tea the way you buy wine, know the story, know where it comes from, like buy it because it tastes amazing, and it's enriching the farming.
I suppose the problem is that wine is mostly grown and made in first world countries, and there's a huge degree of separation to East Africa, where all this tea is being grown. And China as well, of course. It's so far away for people in the West. Yeah,
but there are protections as well.
India.
India is a problem. Sri Lanka is a problem. Yeah. We don't know. We have no connection. Like, people know there's tea in Darjeeling, but they don't really know if they're drinking any tea from Darjeeling unless you're a kind of more specialist person, you know. So really, you just know the name of your brand. And I don't think any of them are any good. I wouldn't drink any of them.
No.
Sorry.
I mean, it's it's a lot like coffee. I'm much more clued up on coffee
It's the same.
than I am with
Well,
tea, but it's
no.
very similar. I mean, like, do you like Maxwell House or Nescafe? Well, I like neither of them because they're disgusting. They don't really taste like coffee. And you need to start drinking proper coffee to realize that there's not even really this, and it's the same product, but it's not the same product. It's the same raw material.
Yeah.
There's the degrees of quality within the raw material, of course, but the way in which it's processed and all that goes into that, and then prepared and brewed and everything.
And sourced. It
makes it for completely different drinks in the cup. Yes, they look dark and they're called coffee, but they're really not the same. And it's the same thing with tea. I mean, what we're drinking now is just a million miles away from a PG Tips with a splash of milk in it, you know?
Back in the day, I had a red top newspaper tell me that I was a charlatan. I mean, we're talking 15 years ago. And tea is tea. And I just sell fancy packaging. And
That seems like a sort of thing a red top newspaper would do. I mean,
and
don't take away our Tetley kind of thing.
and they were and people. It was like YouTube or Instagram of the day. People read those newspapers and they believed it. And so I thought, okay, I was naive and brave. Like now, I just probably wouldn't engage because I like no point engaging. But then I was like, okay, come with me. And we'll do a taste test. And I went to, I had this customer called Zed Lahej. Sadly, he's no longer alive, but he's a very famous tattoo artist. He's called the Dot Father. He's like, he invented a whole new way of tattooing with dots.
I'm familiar with him. Yeah.
Well, sadly, he died not that long ago, but it was amazing. He fucking loved my tea. In fact, Jasmine Tea was like his entry level, and then he got into oolongs and pu'erhs and.
Did he used to tattoo Into You?
Yeah.
Yeah. One of my tattoos is from Into You, not by him, but
Divine Canvas and Into You.
Yeah.
Into You was where he was his own. Yeah, he was an amazing character. Anyway, he was really into it, and Divine Canvas I think was where he was at the time, and it was a kind of place where you went to get a full arm or sleeve or a face tattoo or your full back. You weren't going to get like a little butterfly on your wrist. And he had a waiting list, and all of them did for like years and years and years. So these were proper. You were really into your tattoos, and Zed had tattoos all over his face.
yes, I remember seeing him there. At Into You.
Yeah, he had tattoos all over his body actually. And I said, like, can I bring them here? Can I bring the photographer and the red top journalist? And he's like, sure, okay, we're going to do it. So I gave an English breakfast blend that I'd made, like beautifully blended black teas from farms that I bought it from, with an industrial, the highest selling industrial tea bag in the box. And I gave it to all the customers and all the tattoo artists, because you don't have to be some highfalutin sommelier or a fine chef to know the difference. It's just that easy. And not a single person, including the cameraman and the journalist, didn't prefer the good tea.
Yeah.
And it was easy. And I felt great confidence from that. I thought, like, you just have to taste it.
Yeah, that's it. And most people, I don't think, really get the chance. And of course, there's the brewing side of it too, where if you fuck that up, then you're not going to get the best out of the tea. So there's this sort of end user.
It's for English breakfast, you can be pretty rough, right? Like if we're talking for British tea you can just put boiling water on.
I mean, they're used to some abuse with the bagged teas they're already drinking, right? So it's going to be better.
It's firstly, it's pre-measured for you, and then there's the paper, right?
Yeah.
Or the nylon, or the, like it could be made of virgin plastic, it could be made of corn plastic. It's going to be if it's in a bag, in order to turn a tree into paper or corn or oil into plastic, you need chemical process, right? And you need industrial solvents and bleaches and glues and nanoplastics and all that kind of stuff, and that goes into the bag to make it into a bag, and it doesn't just disappear. In fact, how do we get most of that into our bodies as easily as possible? I know, let's put it in boiling water.
That's going to extract it.
That's going to extract it really well.
Yeah.
So it has a flavour. That's the first thing. Like, don't believe me, empty your bag and brew your bag. Just brew the bag on its own.
Taste the bag.
Yeah. So there's that. First of all, it tastes like paper or plastic and like people think it's, and it's crazy because like really rich people, it's not just about money. Like they'll take a plastic pyramid with a little like dangling over their cup, like a menstrually dangling in their cup. Like, why would you do that? You know,
Thanks
like,
for that vision.
yeah, I mean, you wouldn't even, and they think, well, it's too complicated. Like, a cafetiere is not considered that complicated, you know, and that is basically just a teapot, right? You know, you put some tea in and you pour it off. It's not complicated to use a teapot.
I think tea's probably easier to brew from a sort of physical point of view than coffee, because I've actually got a book at home. You might be familiar with it. It's called Coffee Floats Tea Sinks.
No.
It's published in the 80s. It's brilliant. It's basically just a picture book of coffee and tea brewing equipment throughout the ages. It's remarkable. And it was published by a collector of coffee brewing and teapots and all that sort of thing. Anyway, the fundamental kind of message of the book is that it's actually easier to brew tea because it, for the most part, sinks. Whereas coffee wants to be all over the place. Some of it floats, some of it sinks, some of it's suspended in the liquid.
There's all these oils.
Yeah, so that's why you have all these many different ways of brewing coffee, like cafetières, pour over drips, siphon brewers, balance brewers, cloth filters, because it's actually quite annoying to try and separate coffee out from water. Whereas tea, it just sits there. Usually, if it's good tea, then it's usually in pretty large leaves clumps, so you can put it through a mesh filter, like a pretty coarse filter. I mean, like something like this has got reasononly big holes on it, you know?
Yeah, like this is a normal tea.
Yeah, exactly. You put coffee through that, then you know, like a coffee in your cup, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of easier. Although there are, of course, many different beautiful items like this that have been created for the very ritual of brewing tea.
Yeah, but even like a fine English breakfast will go through just a normal sieve. It's really easy. You put it in a vessel and you strain it into a second vessel. It couldn't be easier. But the thing is, it will extract better because it needs space to unfurl and to.
Yeah.
It's a dried herb.
Yeah.
And even a fine tea like that, and there's so much distraction. Like, is it a circular bag or a pyramid bag or a square bag? All distraction, all to tell you.
You're getting bogged down on the really unnecessary parts of
Just
this.
put it in a teapot, let it infuse properly, and it will taste better.
So is there no such thing as a good bagged tea?
There's no such thing as an eco-friendly bag. It's always a precious use of natural resources. It's a single use. It's going to have industrial chemicals in it. It's impossible not to. Those are going to go into your water, into you. But it's, like trees, corn, plastic. Why are we using them for packaging when it's completely unnecessary? And then there's the strings and the glues and the nanoplastics and the envelopes and all this other bullshit you just don't need. It's like, it's so simple, so easy to be done for millennia. And when people say it's too hard, you're like, millennia. It's that easy. And you can just, nowadays, you can get a stainless steel mug filter. Like it goes in your mug. It's like a tea bag, right? You put the tea in, you put it in your mug, you take it out.
They're cool, aren't they? Because it is effectively a steel tea bag, isn't it?
Yeah, and then you can use it again.
And then you can just chuck it away and you can rebrew it, obviously. Oh, let's talk about that in a minute.
And you can chuck it into your straight, because it's a plant, and if it doesn't have any chemicals on it, and it's organic, you just put it straight into your plant pots, into your garden.
Compost.
It doesn't even need to go into the compost. It's just a plant mulch that will just go on underneath your roses. Great. My garden in Mexico is really flourishing with the tea leaves. Like, it really loves it. It stops evaporation, putting something on top.
There's probably barely a garden in the world that's getting fed so many spent tea leaves as yours.
I got a papaya this year.
Wow.
Two papaya.
You should make a fruit tea with that.
Another question to talk about. It got me so pissed off at first, because I was like, if you had wine, you wouldn't be putting flavors in it, right? No one puts strawberry flavoring in a wine. And then I started working with Claridge's, and they'd been using a French tea company that had a very famous fruit tea, and they were like, we really need this, our customers like it. And I'm like, oh yeah, up on my iOS. And then I had a Kir Royale, and I was like, oh yeah, champagne has fruit in it.
Well, and like vermouth is sort of herbalized wine, right?
And I was like, I know, but that champagne really got it for me, because I was like, that's the fine, like, people consider like the best kind of wine, and yes, people do put fruit in it, but I was like, but it's fruit, right? It's not a chemical flavour.
Sure.
It's actually, so I started working with a jam lady, Sky, who works for England Preserves, to make me a syrup. So we started with, like, I think it was quince, and it's just quince, sugar, and lemon juice, and we put that in the tea, in like a little syrup, and you pour the tea. I used a Chinese Empress Breakfast, beautiful black tea, and we made the pairing perfectly, and it's delicious, and it's fruit and sugar and tea. Whereas a fruit tea that you buy from the shop that has been aromatized, they sometimes call it, is a flavoring. It sometimes says natural flavoring, right? And fruit. So I had the tea analyzed, because I wanted to understand what it was. This one, I was this French chef, pastry chef, said, oh la la, Henriette, I need to have this particular tea that I love, and you need to make it for me. I was like, okay. So I got this very famous French brand tea that was super expensive. I had to buy it. I was like, got down. I took it to the lab, so I have the tea tested for chemicals and pesticides. And I said, what's in it? Number one ingredient after tea, which was a really low grade cheap tea, like they were like, terrible, was sugar. I was like, what? That's impossible. It says on the label, fruit, natural flavorings. They were like, yeah, fructose. It's been extracted from fruit. So if it's got fruit pieces in it, they can legally get away. And it would normally, in the old days, would have said E516 and E whatever, but they don't have to say that anymore. They could just say natural flavorings because it's you're protecting your IP.
Yeah.
So they were saying, he said, this is the same flavorings that Haribo use. And they're natural in the sense that
A lot of them taste like that, though. Like,
so
you
it
try
tastes
some
like-
of these, they really do taste like Haribo.
that's why. If it tastes like sweeties, it's got sweetie
Because it's
flavour.
got sweeties in it.
Yeah, so it was kind of insane. And the fruit's just there to make it look natural. Like if you took a big handful of dried strawberries and you put it in hot water, it won't taste like strawberry candy.
Yeah.
It won't.
So the method you're saying, working with, excuse me, I forgot her name, Jam Lady, with syrup, and you're using natural fruits and sugar. How do you actually go about packaging that as a?
Oh, so it's just the syrup. So we don't actually sell it.
So you sell the syrup alongside the
Yeah.
tea, and then you just dose the sort of syrup in there.
So we did used to sell it, but it was quite complicated, glass jars full of syrup, and our warehouse was really not into it. I mean, it's just jam, right? It's just a strained jam.
Yeah, sure,
So
sure.
you could do it, like get a beautiful jam from England Preserves.
And just stir like a spoon of it into your tea. Yeah, and there you go.
And then at least you know if it's from a really good jam company, then it's just going to be fruit and sugar and maybe like pectin lemon juice. That's it.
It's amazing the compromises that we make for convenience, isn't it? Yeah. And also the way that we get sort of stuck into these rituals of convenience, and we're like, God, it's so stupid what you're doing here. You've already got everything you need.
Yeah.
Like,
and so also there's so much, like in wine, you've got acid. It's an acid, right? In tea, we've got like a different kind of pHs, flavor profiles, way, way, way wider than you have in wine. We've got so many flavor profiles. It's cornucopia, and then you've got all the herbs we could call tea too. So much going on. You don't need to put flavorings. The only reason that flavorings are going on there is a way of disguising shit tea and making it and premiumizing it. Like, let's buy the cheapest shit tea, and because tea has got cheaper and cheaper, and people are living in poverty, the quality is diminished, and they can't produce. If it's less than the cost of production, you're going to cut corners everywhere. You're going to try and produce it as cheaply and as industrially as possible. So the tea gets worse, but you want to keep making lots of money. Let's put some flavoring and add some blue petals and some rose petals in it.
Yeah. I mean, also, I think it's sometimes on the cheaper end for people who don't like tea, but they like the idea of having a flavored hot beverage. And it's sort of like infantilizing it as well, because it's like, raspberry and hibiscus. Never been near a raspberry or
red
yeah,
berries. That's the
exactly. And it's like, oh, I like that. Just like the same people who probably buy that flavor vape, or they buy the gin flavored with that as well, and it's sort of this consistent, again, almost like Haribo kind of flavor that they can kind of adhere themselves to and feel like they're sort of having this tea moment or this smoking moment or this gin moment, where in actual fact it's just covering up a poor quality product, and you're not really drinking the beverage that you say you're drinking. Or
if you love it, that there's an answer, right? Like you could have you could put some jam in if you love those flavors with your tea, and Russians have always had jam with tea. It's a thing. And if you love milk in your tea, put milk in your tea, and you love sugar in your tea, put sugar. Like, enjoy it, but please, it's not worth the cost to the people who make it. The people, a woman in Malawi who's picking tea, who's not going to live into her 60s. She's probably not going to live to see her children grow up. That's not worth that cheap tea bag. That's just, it's not worth it in flavor. It's not delicious enough.
No.
And it's not worth the cost to them.
Yeah.
So buy something good and put milk in it and put sugar in it and put flavors in it. Do whatever you want, but buy really good tea as your base, I think, is what I don't really need to be a snob about it. It's not, that's... people say, I'm called Henrietta and I'm posh, and they're like, it's really a feat, and your tea is really a feat, and it's just for fancy restaurants, and it's like, it's some kind of snobbery. No, it's just good tea, right? It's just good tea bought at a fair price with a farmer, working with a farmer. And this idea that there's some kind of, snobbery involved, or maybe we're losing this egalitarian world where everyone drinks the same tea that we had during the rationing. No, it's a betrayal of your brothers and sisters.
Is that a pushback, is it, that you hear? It's like...
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just posh tea. You're just posh, and it's posh tea. No, it's a betrayal of your brothers and sisters in India and Africa if you drink that shitty tea.
What's the, and this doesn't have to be like maybe one of your products, but just generally, what's the sort of first sort of trade up you would recommend to people to do, and how to find this so that you're not hitting those normal brands, you're getting something of much higher quality, a bit more expensive, but not crazy money. What should you look for?
Well, it depends what you love. Like, we think of normal tea here in the UK as English breakfast tea, but that's not normal to everyone. That's just normal to us culturally, right? If your normal tea is green tea, depending where you live in the world, maybe in Morocco, and you like drinking green tea, actually the quality of tea getting into Morocco is way higher than the green tea coming in here, because they do drink green tea and they understand, appreciate, and pay more for it. Actually quite expensive in terms of your income in Morocco. But anyway, I would buy the tea that was normal to me in my culture, the best I could, and I would find the cheapest that was direct trade with a farm. I just think you don't have to buy really, really fancy Japanese tea. It's delicious, and it should be like drinking a really beautiful liqueur. And it's maybe Sunday morning tea, but like I have an English breakfast blend called Speedy Breakfast, which I made to be like a tea bag tea, strong,
like everyday kind of tea.
Yeah, and you can buy it by kilo, and it will cost you a few pence more a cup.
A few pence more.
Not, you don't have to trade up pounds, you're trading up a few pence more.
Wow.
And if you think, because it is hard, life is expensive, costs are going up in our lives, but just if you can't afford the few pence more, maybe don't drink tea, because it's not, I honestly don't think it's worth the expense, and it's getting worse. Like, people's lives are getting worse in tea as we think, oh, I need to cut corners. Oh my God. And then you get a restaurant or a hotel. We had a hotel the other day that we'd worked with for years, and they were like, oh, I'm really sorry, all the costs are going up, we have to get rid of your tea. And it's like, what, like all the things like our fish prices, we're getting less margin on a fish. Fish is too expensive, and I've got to save margin somewhere, right? And I can save it with tea. Do you know what margin a restaurant or hotel generally gets on my tea?
Oh, I'd imagine it's massive.
90.
Yeah, 90%.
90% is quite normal.
Yeah.
It would be between 70 and 92, say something like that. I don't think anybody sells tea, our tea, because there's a range, right? It can go really expensive for Claridge's, or you could buy, Speedy Breakfast, and there's every single kind of restaurant and place that serves tea could afford. And in fact, I did this for a program on television for Channel 4 called the Restaurant Program years ago. I took Starbucks and saw that Starbucks could make 90% margin on my tea. So it's not about it's very, very possible, but they wanted to make 98% profit on the tea.
Crazy, right?
98, and they're going to save money on the backs of women in India and Africa so they can give this is a 5-star hotel in London, so they can give their guests cheaper
and then
fish.
presumably they need to make that such a crazy margin on your tea, because they're not hammering in the sort of pricing on another product, and so it's when it's
at a good price they'll get a 90. It's a very, very affordable luxury, and every single business we work with around the world, and after 20 years they are all over the world, they make between 70 and 90% margin. That's great business for everybody, for me, for my farmer, for everybody, but they can make 98% gross profit margin on a cheap industrial tea. And sometimes they make that choice, and it's 5-star hotels that you were like, what you're spending, the thread count of your sheets, and the free bottle of wine in the room, and all those things, and you think, oh really? Because people don't know they can, and you've got some old F&B, not F&B manager, like procurement guy, just going, well, it's too expensive, and they say things like, your business doesn't work, it's too expensive, I can buy it cheaper somewhere else. Yeah.
At what cost?
At what cost? And when you explain it to them and they know it, and you say, we have this discussion, and they still choose the cheaper brand. Wow. I mean, I've 21 years I've been doing this, and it does hurt me. It does, and I do get annoyed, and I'm sorry if I sound like I'm ranting, but it's like, wow.
Because it's not just business, right? It's the sort of ethical side of it.
And it's so affordable for them. They make great business out of it. Nobody needs to be making 98%. That is theft.
Yeah, and also it's a really high quality product. They are already selling better quality tea than 95% of other places, right? So it's such an easy thing to kind of tick that box off and go, look, we've got great tea and it's better than pretty much everyone else.
Yeah.
And we're still making a 90% margin on it. We'll get back to the show shortly, but first I wanted to give a shout out to our sponsor, Fever Tree. Fever Tree have been my mixer of choice for more than a decade now, going right back to when I used them as our mixer at 15 in Cornwall in 2005. It's a very long time ago. This is a brand, of course, that made its name with tonic water. But to be honest with you, the thing that's going to be most excited at the moment is their range of ginger mixers. They have ginger beer, ginger ale, and then this product here, which is possibly my favorite in the entire range. Fever Tree Spiced Orange Ginger Ale. The product starts out just like their normal ginger ale, flavored with 3 unique gingers that harmoniously come together for a nice citric, zesty, but also subtly spicy ginger effect. Then 2 more ingredients are added: cinnamon for a nice baking spice hum, and then fresh clementine, which really extends that citric flavor and adds weight and body to this ginger ale. I would happily drink this stuff on its own, but of course it's a mixer and it's best served with a nice whiskey, extending out into a highball and adding some real length and depth to it.
Yeah, it was funny. Someone we've worked with over the years, I had this
You passed me that Jasmine one.
I was talking to him. Oh, why don't you try this one? This is coffee leaf from Terroir. So this is a tea made like coffee. So when you're pruning coffee, this farm does coffee and tea. When you're pruning it, you take the little new growth, the little small leaf and bud, like a tea. And he was like, "Shit, I could turn this into a tea." And
so this is made from a coffee plant, but it's processed like
tea, like a black tea.
Wow, I've never tried this before.
No, it's pretty rare and special. He's the only.
Where is it from? Sorry,
Malawi. From September, and in Ethiopia they do drink coffee leaf, but just like a dried herb. This is the only person I've ever met or known about. I think he is completely unique to process it like a tea. It's pretty amazing, isn't it?
It's really
not like
nice.
anything else you've had before. And this is the cold extraction. It's really good hot too. We've just been experimenting on how many grams per litre. This is a blend of 8 and 10.
So I can see here on the Himalayan, it says 6 grams. That's per litre that you're brewing?
It's 6 grams of Himalayan Spring and 1 gram of Sencha per litre. Yeah, so it's small amounts of tea.
Right, and typically, so is 6 grams a litre a kind of typical brew ratio?
For greens, and then for blacks you need more, like sort of 10 to 12.
Right, okay.
So it is very...
There's not much of it in a litre then, is there?
No.
Especially compared to coffee.
So when you're thinking about when you're buying an iced tea in a bottle, you are really buying water.
Yeah, you are, aren't you? And I mean, if you think, so what is
it's kind of tobacco, isn't it?
It is.
It's like all the best bits of tobacco.
Yeah, it's very tobacco-y for sure. Yeah. So your fast breakfast, speedy breakfast.
Yeah.
How much is that for a kilo on your website, roughly?
Shit, I don't know.
I don't know.
Sorry, I should know.
Just trying to work out.
That sound like Boris Johnson. No,
don't worry,
milk is.
We'll just leave that bit out.
Okay. It's it does have on the website. It does tell you what it is per cup as well. Breaks down.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, because I think it's important for people to see it. Like if you can infuse, say, a beautiful oolong 6 times, you get 6 cups out of it. It breaks down to be so cheap, but when you buy it and you see it as a wet weight, it seems expensive.
It's got a slight milkiness to it as well. That like it's almost, if I had my eyes closed, I'd say to someone I'd put a little bit of milk in there. There's a slight dairy note to it. It's really interesting.
Like a kind of that lactic, like Ricea, kind of that venenosa one that's got.
Oh,
I love that one. I don't know what color. I remember what color label it is, but
I'm not. Yeah, I mean, there's a few different Riceas he does.
One of them is really, really
lactic-y.
funky.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
it does taste a little fermented too, and it really isn't. It's just oxidation.
You mentioned Pu'erh being fermented. So what's the process with that? I've always struggled with Pu'erh a little bit. It's got kind of weird.
I think it's very good with food. The first time you drink it, it's really good to have it with something like some meat or game or even cheese. You want something that's going to have some body. And then in China, especially in Hong Kong, I think outside of Pu'erh, in Yunnan, where it comes from. I think the biggest drinkers are in Hong Kong, and it's very much like dim sum. What you're eating. It's the tea you have.
It always tastes a little bit like dim sum to me. Like it's got a sort of slightly prawny kind of note. Well, at least the ones I've had. Maybe I've not been having the right ones.
There's so much. It's like when people say to me they don't like green tea, which still happens. And I think if you've only ever had an industrial green tea bag, it's very not likely you're not going to like it. But when you have something, there's as many different flavors in green tea as there are white wines. I think that's probably true of Pu'erh, and I think the good stuff is incredibly delicious. And if you close your eyes right now and you imagine yourself in a forest and it's raining and you can smell the wet earth, and you came across a house with a wooden shingled roof and a water butt, and it
sounds like Hansel and Gretel, but carry on.
It is very Hansel and Gretel. And the water is falling from dripping off the trees, off the roof into the barrel, and you've got that like sort of slightly loamy, like the wet earth, the smell of the wet earth, the wet trees, and you drink that water. It should taste, very, and maybe there's a few leaves in the barrel, so you get that slightly autumn leaf flavor. It should taste clean and bright, but kind of forest flory.
Okay.
And I think those.
I'm sold now.
And it can be super, super delicious, and I do enjoy it. But I think it is something that has been traded like champagne. So like vintage champagnes, probably never drinks because they have higher value. And it's the same with some of the Pu'erh cakes. They were made into cakes for transport.
Right.
These sort of discs, and you can put a piece of paper into it when you press it, so it has an age statement, and you can know how old it is. So there's two reasons why they're valuable. One is like they can have a stamp inside of them. They have a lovely piece of paper, and then they have this age statement. So that gives it, authenticity when you're spending a lot of money at auction. Whereas in Yunnan, no one puts it in a cake. You just drink it because it's beautiful, and you don't need it's about flavor. You don't care.
Is this caking unique to Pu'erh?
Yeah. Well, it was a way of transporting. So black tea was transported in bricks, and it's survived in Pu'erh. But you can drink. I like leaf Pu'erh that hasn't been put into a brick, and I buy it for flavor and quality. And Yunnan, I just got back. I just spent 5 weeks up there. It's amazing. It's right on the border with Yunnan. With Myanmar. That's what I'm thinking about. It's very tropical. It's the border is it's permeable for the locals as well. The tribes people of Yunnan and Myanmar, they go backwards and forwards. They have gardens on both sides. It's really interesting.
What did you do out there for 5 weeks?
In China, I was
you're all over.
Yeah, I had an amazing trip. But the teas are can be aged over years, or they can be pile fermented, where you like add moisture and you start a kind of wet fermentation, and then you let a longer slow dry fermentation. And those are much cheaper and much more accessible. And I enjoy those teas. I don't really drink the ones that take a decade.
Yeah. So aging tea, like explain that to me, because that sounds like what happens to tea as it gets older, and what conditions does it have to happen under?
Age for Pu'erh is a long, slow fermentation, right? Just in air.
Right.
So that will age. It could get more delicious, but it doesn't necessarily mean like it's going to get more delicious. It might get not so nice, like a champagne. Like some vintage champagnes are delicious, biscuity things of wonder, and some fucked. And I think the same thing happens with Pu'erhs. And so, I like to buy one that I'd go there, I'd buy this one, I know exactly how it is, and then I put it in a bag and I seal it, and I know that's what I'm selling, and I know it's consistent and it's delicious, because I want people to fall in love. And I don't need to sell really expensive Pu'erhs that are for collectors. And there's a lot of like fanciness about tea, like, you don't know exactly what kind, you don't have all the words, and you don't know exactly what kind of varietal this Oolong comes from, and the exact percentage of oxidation, then you can't come into our club because you're not knowledgeable enough. And I don't want tea to be like that. The revolution has to be accessible to everyone, and it has to be delicious. So yeah, I'm definitely taking deliciousness over everything.
What do collectors do exactly? They collect it and then they trade it. And then it eventually gets brewed, or do they just sit on it and like happy with it on the shelf kind of thing?
Yeah, well, it's a bit like opening a bottle of vintage champagne once you've opened it.
Yeah.
So there are people who drink vintage Pu'erhs, but they're few and far between. Chinese billionaires. Yeah.
How expensive can tea get? Yes, is the answer.
Yeah, it is very affordable in comparison with wines and things usually, but there are a few places. So there's a place in Fujian called the Wuyishan, which is a protected forest. It's a UNESCO protected forest, and that's where the Da Hong Pao comes from. And inside that forest, there's another even more protected area. And it's like it's a special no exclusion zone. You can't go there unless you've got like super good connections. And the families, there's like 3 villages, and the families are not allowed to employ anyone to come in and work there. So they're allowed to be there and produce tea. But there's a tea there called, that's where the Lapsang Souchong, the really good Lapsang Souchong comes from. That's why I started to go there. And then when I went there and I met Mr. Wen, he also makes this tea. So it's quite wild looking because no one is looking after the tea. There's no people to do it. There's just these few families. And they have to pick, there's a tea called the golden eyebrow, and it's made with buds of black tea. So it's a hand-rolled black tea made just from tiny buds, and there's about 6 kilos a year.
So the price is reasonably high for it.
It's pretty good, and I sell it for probably about a tenth of what you would buy for it in Shanghai because I can, because Mr. Wen sells it to me. He lets me have some every year.
Is this the most expensive tea you sell?
I think so, yeah.
Do you know the price off the top of your head?
No, I don't drink it. I can't afford it. I drink it when I'm there, and then I buy it, and I know that there's...
And you have customers that buy it?
Yeah, I've got a few customers there. I mean, it's so good. If I had the money, I would buy it. But I'm not trying to be the richest tea lady in the world. I'm trying to be the best.
But you get to try it every year.
I get to try it every year, yeah.
Oh.
And occasionally we'll be doing a tasting with some like fancy chef, and I get to taste it. And that's the same with the team. But we don't have any. We have everything open apart from that one, and we open it specially for special people. And it is amazing. But I mean, the lapsang is really, really insane.
How much is it? What are we talking here, like roughly, for a pot of this stuff? What is it? What are even formats like?
About money, I don't know.
I'm just intrigued as to how high the prices go on this kind of thing. Like you say, it's more expensive in Shanghai, but I mean, what are we talking? Is it going to cost me? Let's say.
Okay, we'll look it up because it will tell us on the website. I think we worked out that on the website. I think we're working out that you have. Oh, can't even find it. Sorry, look.
Oh,
getting there. I'm getting there.
Sorry, we're going to find this. Emperor's eyebrow, is it?
I call it Emperor's golden eyebrow.
Oh no, golden eyebrow.
Okay, extremely rare Chinese Emperor's golden eyebrow. It's £248 for 50 grams.
Okay,
that is going to work out.
Still cheaper than champagne.
It's £2.49 a cup. If you brew it, I can't remember how many times we suggested, but that's probably like 6 infusions in Gai One.
Right. So I mean, that's what you pay for a shit cup of tea in a fucking cafe. Like, you just got to brew it at home.
And you've got to brew it like you would brew it in Gai One, like small, and that's why you get 6 extractions out of it because you're brewing it in a small vessel. High leaf to water ratio and letting it, each time the water penetrates in, you'll get a different extraction, and you would definitely do it 6 times because it's valuable. And you see how the flavour develops. Right,
so let's talk about this then. Multiple flushes, do you call it? Steeps.
Or infusions, because the flush is when the tea produces its new leaves.
Right, that's okay. Let's make sure we get the terminology right here. So it's the brews or the steeps. Can all teas be brewed more than once, or good teas?
Yeah, so like a fine grade tea, like our speedy breakfast, has been cut fine in order to extract quickly.
Yes,
and that's where
speedy.
Yeah, and if I could, the same, like Los Malawi is a similar tea, but it's from the same farm, slightly different blend, but it has a lot higher leaf size, and people complained that they wanted it fast, that they want that flavour quick. So that speedy breakfast has such a high surface area to volume because it's been cut small that it will give up its flavour, right? But if you have a leaf tea that has a large surface area to volume, then when you put it in hot water, the first thing that's going to dissolve is a carbohydrate. So if you do a quick extraction, you're going to get a lot of sweetness. And then the second time, you're going to get more burnt, if we're talking black teas here, burnt sugar and caramel. And then you might get a kind of weird tropical pineapple note on the third extraction. We're like, whoa, where did that come from? But that's some amino acid that has now dissolved.
You penetrated into the leaf far enough.
Yeah, and those short extractions will stop the tannin, which is in the leaf, from overpowering the other flavors, because the tannin needs more time to extract. So you're going to get a little bit of tannin each time. Whereas if you leave it over for like 3 minutes, like it says on your tea bag box, 3 minutes, then all the tannin will have extracted and you'll only get tannin. But that's why they say it, because there's no flavor left in that like cheap industrial tea. You're just getting like water, and it tastes very thin when you taste it beside a good tea. You know, it's just tannic water.
You were doing a tasting of some samples just before we started recording, and I was amazed at how fast you were brewing and tasting. It was quite frankly, it was
20 seconds.
Ridiculous the speed at which you guys were working at tasting all this stuff and brewing and all the words and stuff that were flying around the place. But I mean, it really was like walking into another planet. But this is the thing. So you do these quick 20-second brews, and then you could then potentially brew again and extract another kind of section of flavor off it, because you're only taking little sort of snippets of that cross section of flavor each single time you do it.
Absolutely, and it is about high volume of water tea leaf to water.
Yeah.
So that's why, like the Guy one, it's called Gong Fu method, is like a little cup, like a little teacup. It looks just like a teacup, right? But it doesn't have a handle, and it has a lid. And you use that lid you put it at a tiny angle. I've got one. Yeah. Oops. So.
Yeah.
So you use the lid as the spout, because you just make a little gap so that you can pour the tea through. And then, with this way, you're very controlled, because you've got it right in your hand, and it'll extract. I'm not waiting to pour it through a spout, so it's not going to take time. I can be, as soon as I strain it, I'm strained. And the volatiles and the oils in extraction are not going to get lost. They're going to be on the lid. So a bit like, in fermentation, alcohol, you want
like distillation.
Distillation.
Yeah.
God, sometimes.
Yeah. No,
So I'm keeping all the aroma in. So that's great. That doesn't have a spout. I can smell different things on the lid that I can from the wet leaf, and I can be really in control. It's in my hand, it's small, and I'd probably put the same amount of tea as I would in a whole tea. Like I put 2.5, 3 grams, maybe even 6 grams in here to do it really quick, depending on the tea. And then I'll change, and then you see you have temperature controlled kettle, so I'm changing the temperature.
I have the same kettle at home.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, I do. The one thing, if you're a real geek though, the swan neck is a problem, because if you're making a small amount of tea, the water in the neck is a different temperature than the water in the... Yeah. So I don't like the swan neck as much, although it is good for precision.
Yeah, and it's good for coffee pour over, of course, when you're doing the kind of...
yeah, but I would always pour out some...
Pour a little bit at first, because you've got the cooler water in the neck.
Yeah. And it changes the guy. It'll change about like 10 degrees.
Yeah, it's crazy, which is big. So just to finish up on the amount of times you can do an infusion, the two important factors here are the brew ratio, so how much tea to water you're using, and then the time. So because a lot of the time, if you buy so-called like good quality tea, it will say you can extract this 2-3 times, but it also says brew for 3 minutes. Don't do that. Shorter brew, and then you can do 2, 3, 4.
And most teas, I would say, apart from like a really broken black tea, but even like Earl Grey is a very broken black tea. I usually make that 3 times, but I like it quite soft. I'm not looking for a really strong brew to go with milk. And then, but like an Oolong 6, a Malawi antler, which is made from quite a woody stem, I've got 11 infusions out of it.
11. And it's so how long would the brew time be on that? Like literally a few seconds kind of thing?
It's actually, because it's quite woody. And there's a whole bit in my book about how to brew it, because it's quite interesting. The beginning, because it's quite woody, you have to go a little bit longer. So you might go like 30 seconds at the beginning, and then it gets soft, and then you go these very short ones. And then again, you've lost quite a lot of flavor. At the end, you go back to maybe even a minute. And when you're doing gyokuro, the really beautiful shaded Japanese teas, like and karigani, you can change the temperature really drastically to get different flavors. And when I had it, I remember that with one incredible master in Japan, he started at 37 degrees at blood temperature.
Yeah.
And he gave it was a huge amount of tea, a small amount of cool water in a very flat pot. So it was it's a flat guy one. And we had quite a long extraction. I can't remember, a couple of minutes maybe for the beginning. And he gave me that. And then we did the next one 10 degrees hotter, and the next one 10 degrees hotter, and we did it until we got up to...
And he's just fractioning off different flavours based on the temperature.
But the easiest way to fraction off flavours in tea is with alcohol. And that's really fascinating. So...
Well, let's come back to that in a second. Just a couple more questions about temperature. Because it sounds like there are a lot of different rules that can be bent and broken with temperature, since
Yeah.
you're now talking about brewing at 37 degrees. But what are some general kind of rules around different tea types and temperature? Because I think probably the standard convention is like white teas, green teas, you brew at 70 degrees, 80 degrees, and then you go hotter and hotter as you get up to black tea. Maybe Oolong's 80, I don't know, something like that.
I mean, I think if you want milk, always use 100. So
Right.
you need to bring out all the tannins and all that. And those bitter elements, not just tannins, they dissolve at high temperature and over time. So you do want that longer, hot steep. But if you're using a beautiful black tea, and there are some black teas that are like the most sublime flavors in the whole world, like that Emperor's Eyebrow, I would use water at like 80, 85. To get the kind of caramels before the tannin overpowers. Green teas, there are lots of beautiful sweet amino acids that dissolve at a lower temperature. So it's really, the reason why you're using a lower temperature, like 70, between 60 and 80 for a green tea, depending on what you like and your flavor profile, is because the flavors that are the most desirable in those teas will have a low dissolving point. It's not about burning the leaf or anything. It's just you don't want it overpowered by the tannins, and you want those ones to really sing. And you can go right down to cold extraction, and cold extraction you get different flavors out, and it just takes longer. So that's why you might need 8 to 12 hours or even 24 or 48 on a cold extraction, depending on the leaf. But there's all that between 0 and 100, unless you're in Mexico where you only get to 92.
Of course, the altitude.
Yeah, it's really
That must be a bit of a problem for you, isn't it?
I'm learning, I'm adapting.
How are you going to do that?
Well, I mean, it's
Just not drinking so much black tea, maybe.
Yeah, no, but Richard Blake, my husband loves a strong, speedy breakfast tea, and it is bubbling at 92. It just reaches that rolling boil at 92 instead of 100, and he gets a great flavour out of it. It's just, you just have to, like making bread. He's a baker, he has to adapt his recipe for the altitude. Yeah, but you can always adapt, because all you need to know is 3 things. You've got leaf to water ratio. You can vary that. If you want stronger tea, use more tea.
Yes.
Don't use more time. That's a myth. That's about cheap tea getting some flavour in the pot. If you temperature, the sweeter flavours will dissolve at lower temperatures. So you've got leaf to water ratio, you can vary, temperature you can vary, and the time of extraction. If you want to bring out the strong, tannic, bitter notes, you can extract it longer and it will bring them. And if you're making cocktails, that can be useful. But like generally for drinking, and I've worked with a lot of scientists on this over the years, 90 seconds, you should extract pretty much everything you want in a tea. 90 seconds, shouldn't need longer than that. If you need it stronger, add more tea. There are things like rooibos, which is not a tea. You might want to extract longer than that, but in the tea family of Camellia sinensis, 90 seconds.
Do you use different brewing equipment depending on the tea type, different shaped teapots, different teacups?
Just for fun.
But is it necessary? Do you think it brings out different properties in the tea? Or I'm thinking also about like materials and insulation and that sort of thing.
I really love fine lip. I did some work with the V&A once on lip feel and how things taste on the different materials with the materials library. And if you're having a fine wine, the fine lip feel really does, the way you bring it to your mouth, and like espresso.
There's some psychology in all of this.
Yeah,
isn't there? Yeah.
You need espresso is really full on, and you need that like soft round thing to make it more approachable. So when I'm working with restaurants, I really encourage them to use glass, because if you have a cold tea in a wine glass, then you think about it like wine and you sip it and you examine it.
It looks like wine, doesn't it? And
yeah, and then I don't put ice in it. It's going to dilute.
Yeah.
If you treat it like wine, get it at the right temperature. Some of the restaurants we work with actually serve a cold extracted tea at ambient temperature like they would a red wine, because you're going to get more aromatics out of it. You don't want it too cold. But some of them you want to temper down the tannins, and so you make it colder. So you'll see that Sencha with Himalayan Spring, as it's warmed up, has changed flavour. So you've got things you can do with it, but I would never serve it on ice. Never, never, never. I mean, I would actually. Of course I would. Sometimes I'd drink wine with ice, but I wouldn't suggest restaurants do.
What about carbonating it? What's that like?
Amazing and so easy. If you try and put it in a machine, not using the brand, it will froth up. It goes crazy. But
because you've got kind of insoluble matter kind of floating around in there. Yeah, it's not going to like that.
It really doesn't. But you can infuse in carbonated water, then it's really quick, which is really interesting.
Yeah, because you've got the CO2 extraction. Yeah, that's
super good.
Cool, yeah.
But it doesn't. It's hard to keep the fizz in. But if you have your own carbonation, you can do all sorts of crazy ass things. But you can make it. You can add carbonation. if you have your own if you have your own tank.
Carbonation rig thing.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Like, I just did some work at the Overstory in New York, and we were doing some crazy, wonderful, delicious fizzy teas. Yeah, I don't like it when they put sugar in it very much. The ones that you can buy commercially are usually quite sweet, and it is really easy to do, and it does give a different texture, and you might need to add a tiny bit of sweetness to balance out the minerality of the fizz. But when you put in something like maple syrup, you need to put like 1 part per 1,000, and it will balance it out, or like 1 part per 2,000.
Do you ever play around with adding salt to tea?
Amazing. It was interesting when we were trying that very strong black tea where we had it. I often taste with shortbread. It's a really good way.
We tried it with the shortbread. It's really good.
And it was really interesting how the salt of the shortbread really sang in that one tea.
Changed the flavour of it. Yeah.
Cheese is really interesting as well. Cheese is really fascinating.
Tea and cheese, that just does not seem like an obvious one.
No, but it does when you think about milk proteins. We love milk and tea.
True,
and then you have things like oolongs. It's just a beautiful.
What sort of teas do you? I mean, I guess it depends on the cheese, doesn't it?
Oolong, though, if you get any kind of oolong, is going to be fairly safe. It's a great dancing partner. Like oolong pairs with everything. It goes sweet, goes salty, it goes cheesy. Like oolong, especially like a yellow gold oolong, like a tiger onion. She's going to dance with everyone.
Can we talk about matcha?
Yeah,
What's that all about?
So I've been selling matcha for I think 20 years, and everyone said I was insane. And no, we didn't sell hardly any. And my team, we often had to like throw it away, and because it doesn't last forever. And I would offer it to pastry chefs, and they would say, "Oh, what's the color like?" I said, "You can have it for free. Like, you can have it. I'm going to throw it away." And they're like, "Well, it's old, so it's sort of gone slightly yellowy." And they're like, "No, I don't want it."
They want that vivid green. Yeah.
If you are getting that vivid green, you probably have coloured tea. There's very little protections in matcha, really none. And when I was just in China, I had some very nice powdered tea, and I said, "Oh, where's this going?" It was not in any way organic, but the flavour was quite good. I said, "Where are you selling this to?" Is that 99% of it's going to Japan?
Really?
So a bit like blended whiskey might not. Japanese. It might come from Scotland.
Japanese whiskey might be coming from Scotland. Japanese matcha is coming from China. Where does matcha originate from? It's from China originally.
Yeah, powdered tea was from China, but it's not really made there anymore.
Right.
It's been enjoyed for probably a millennia.
But Japan is making its own matcha as well.
Only, I mean, traditionally it was only. I think it wasn't until the tsunami, and they weren't exporting, that China started to fill the gap.
I see. So it all so it originated in China, then it was all being made in Japan. Now China is making it to sell it to Japan.
Yeah.
Okay.
And to make their own, like, the tea's a medicine in China, which was traditionally a medicine, right? And it was warm. You always drank it warm. The idea of cold tea would be like, you just can't. It's like that would make it into a poison. You can't. It's got to be warm. And now everyone's drinking cold tea. It's really weird. And matcha. I was really shocked.
And how is matcha made? What is it? How's it processed? Because it's a powder,
it's ground, right? So it's a ground powder.
Ground tea leaves.
Yeah. It's just
into a fine powder.
And it should be shaded, so you're trying to increase the chlorophyll so it'd be nice and green. Yeah. And umami notes and sweetness will be increased by that shading. And then you grind it into a powder. And it was traditionally done on a stone very slowly. And, my husband's a baker, and he doesn't really believe in stone ground. It sounds very romantic, right? But it's very imprecise, and you can break the wheat germ and it will go rancid. And you've got much more precision with a modern roller. But people still love the idea of stone ground, even though it's not as good. And it's the same with matcha. Stone ground it heats it, and it's not. Now they have amazing new presses that can grind really, really precision and get it really good. And now you can do things like hojicha and genmaicha, other teas, because they can grind them because they've got this like high pressure that it wouldn't have gone through, because it was a destemmed green tea leaf, right? Whereas hojicha will have stem, and genmaicha has rice.
It's got like toasted rice.
So you can make powders out of different teas now, which is kind of exciting. And this is there's very little innovation in the tea world in Japan, because they like to keep things very traditional. But this has been a really fun one. But
and it's good because you don't strain it, right? You just dissolve it.
It's not even dissolved.
You're supposed to
suspension.
whisk
It's a suspension.
Yeah.
So you're suspending the leaf in water. And there is some dissolving.
It's just in there because it goes opaque, right?
Yeah. There is some dilution. I mean, dissolving. But mostly it's a suspension.
It's just floating around, but you drink the whole thing, right?
So that's why you've got lots of caffeine, and it's like I wouldn't want to drink a lot of it. Like it should be like a 60 ml of a 2 grams, a lovely matcha drink. But nowadays people are really drinking milk with matcha flavouring kind of thing.
Yes.
And that very, very green colour that people are after is colourings.
Yes.
So do be wary of that. And in Japan, they really don't have much regulation on chemicals. And plant medicine is what they call some pesticides and herbicides. It's very hard to find very good organic matcha. And if you're drinking the whole thing and you're drinking it as a health drink, it's not necessarily a very healthy thing. It could be blasted full of chemicals and colorings and all kinds of other shit. And then you're drinking a big glass of milk.
So if I went and got a matcha latte from Blank Street, which seems to be on practically every street in London, and everyone's walking around with these green things.
I haven't even seen them. But yeah.
So there's tons of them. First of all, it's going to be coloured green, and then secondly,
I'm not saying that. Like,
no. I mean, I'm pretty sure you're right, and
I don't know anything
this
about
this can be on me.
Okay.
This will be on me. But and let's go under the assumption that this is just mass-produced matcha syrup or whatever it is they're putting in these things. It maybe contains some matcha tea, but do you think there's also other flavorings in there? If this is a low-quality matcha product,
I don't know. But it might not be. It's probably not as shade-grown. There's not enough shade-grown tea.
Yeah, it definitely won't be that.
There's just not enough volume that's created. So and it's shaping the farms now. Like all our farms that were producing other teas, they're now like, sorry, we can't. We've just got to produce matcha, and like. We've got a backlog, and because we have a long relationship, we can pre-order and get our matcha, and we get it from Kagoshima, from this amazing farm, and it's organic and they're cool. It's amazing, but like there's not enough of that tea in the world, and they're not taking any new orders from anybody. Nobody is. They can't. They can't supply their own customers.
I just wonder what all these like cheap matcha products, I wonder what they're flavouring it with to get that sort of, because it's got that grassy kind of flavour to it.
I don't know if they're flavouring it or just, mostly you don't know because it's almost always with milk. So
yeah,
you're getting a big glass of milk and some matcha flavour. So
and the green colour does a lot of heavy lifting as well in terms of you thinking you're getting what you've got, right? Like,
exactly.
Yeah,
so
it looks like matcha, tastes like matcha, but actually it just tastes like milk.
I'm really lucky to be in Mexico, and there's amazing coconut water. But the coconut water there is insanely good. So I am making, for my husband's bakery, Green Rhino, I'm making matcha with coconut water. It's not crazy expensive. It's super delicious. It's like from the Marados Yen. It's really good. So if you're worried if you want to drink matcha and you feel like the intense, small 60 ml whisked matcha, the traditional way of drinking it, the really high grade, and you need a much higher grade to drink it with water. That's expensive, right? And it's super delicious, but it's intense, more like an espresso. And you would have it in Japan, and I would always recommend eating with something like mochi or a piece of shortbread or something, because otherwise it might make you feel a little sick, like you might have a biscotti with a matcha, with a espresso. So like that's quite an intense thing. That's what monks use for meditation. It's delicious. It's got lots of caffeine, but it also has L-theanine. In Japanese green tea, in green teas, you've got a higher proportion of L-theanine, which is like the feel-good, like beautiful, makes your brain go into lovely I can't remember what the state is, but anyway, L-theanine makes you feel good and vibey, and then caffeine is making you feel like energized. So you've got those two things, so you can sit and meditate while not falling asleep. Great, that's what matcha. It was like a medicine and a monk's drink. And it's more bioavailable to your body to absorb all the goodness of it when it's just with water. But if you wanted to add something that was like sweet and changes the texture and makes it longer and easier and more approachable, my new thinking is to add coconut water.
I did a cocktail at Black Rock when we first opened called Rice, and it was coconut water, genmaicha, possibly from you actually, and a whiskey served long, like a highball. And the whiskey I used had this sort of jasmine-y note to it. So the idea was all the ingredients were somehow connected to rice, because obviously you get coconut rice, genmaicha's got rice in it. And then the whiskey had this jasmine note, and you get jasmine rice. And so it was this long, it ended up tasting something like a sake actually, because it had this sort of elegant, sort of fragrant kind of quality to it with the tea, and with the coconut water is just so good, lengthening out dark spirits especially, but really any spirit. One of the coolest drinks we ever had on the menu there, I think.
I think this. I hope that if we think the next trend is going to be health. I think people have got to think about what's good for them. Maybe they will, going away from all the like bubble tea, which is like flavorings of sugar and tapioca and all that stuff. I mean, it's not tea, it's like candy, right? I think if you can make these beautiful, sweet, elegant, rehydrating, medicinal, but good for you teas with coconut.
Yeah.
I think that coconut water could be a thing. And I was looking at the really cheap one, the accessible one here in London. It's only 1% extra added sugar. So it's not like, it's 99% coconut water and 1% sugar. So it's not terrible. It's not like Coca-Cola or tonic water in terms of sugar.
You're right. The coconut in Mexico is incredible.
They don't have anything added.
No.
And it's in a glass jar so lucky.
When I was touring around, we used to go, we once or twice we turned up to, which one do you want?
I don't know, whichever one, thanks.
We turned up to some of the, because we were over at, the Jaliscan coast. I forget the city there. Anyway, we're over that way doing the raicilla distilleries. And of course, there's loads of coconut people selling, vendors on the street. And so we'd turn up, they'd prepare the coconut and we'd get a bottle of raicilla or mezcal or tequila and just pour it in and then drink the coconut with it mixed together. It's just so good.
Brilliant. And all over Mexico City, there are those vendors with their machetes.
Yeah, with their machetes, yeah.
It's kind of an amazing city for that. Yeah, I think if you really love your matcha and you can't take it, and also you can buy more affordable versions, they usually call them latte matchas, because they're like, it depends. The very, very finest matchas are really, really expensive, and it's like a Chateau Margaux. You probably don't want to put milk in it, right? That's a really, really good shit. But if you buy a slightly lower grade, which might be a later pick, it's a mixture of different varietals. It's not their top one. Then you could make a cocktail with it, and that I'd add coconut water rather than milk or oat milk. Personally, you'll get loads more flavor of matcha out of it as well.
What does it say about caffeine? I think, first of all, caffeine is present in all teas. Does it vary in quantity?
Like sugar in grapes, but you'd need to be a scientist. It's not obvious. You could say that in some spring teas there's a higher concentration in the bud, and in some there's not. It's really varietal, farm to farm, pick to pick, harvest to harvest. So it's not. I mean, it could be one tea that you pick from the same farm. Week later has a different, the same field from the same bush has a different caffeine.
So there are no kind of hard and fast rules regarding caffeine.
But green tea and black tea have the same amount of caffeine. There's no less in green tea. It's the same raw material. The only thing is that if you make it into hojicha, which is a toasted green tea, it does seem to lose some of the caffeine. But I don't understand exactly how that's happening. But I know that it does happen.
Okay.
So that's it.
And then how does it compare to coffee in terms of caffeine? I mean, again, obviously you can have different brew ratios and stronger cups of tea. So that's but if we're going to kind of sit somewhere in the middle, I mean, these are 6 grams per litre. And, a typical...
Oh, well, that's interesting because that's cold extraction.
Yes, that's going to be different.
It's higher caffeine. And I think people associate caffeine with flavour. So they think of like an espresso being really strong. Like you hear chefs going, oh, I need like 6 espressos. But actually a cafetiere is extracting more caffeine because it's a longer extraction. So an espresso is quite a short extraction, takes lots of flavour, but not so much caffeine. Whereas a French press, long extraction, loads of caffeine in it, but it doesn't taste as strong. So you think, oh, it's not that strong. It's kind of watery. And it's the same thing. This tastes super smooth and easy and light. And you're like, oh, fine. But there's loads of caffeine in this, as opposed to a 90-second English breakfast, speedy breakfast. This has got more caffeine in it. So just don't think about flavour and caffeine. And the other thing is, if you want to reduce your caffeine, you can do a quick wash on your leaf. So you can do like a very quick, like 10 seconds. If you say you were pregnant or you had a hypertension or you're just stressed, think I want the flavour, I don't want all. You can reduce about 30% of the caffeine apparently on that first wash, because it dissolves quite quickly in hot water if you're doing a hot extraction. So,
do you sell any decaffeinated tea?
No, because you need to chemically process it to denaturize it. And I'd rather drink a herb. I drink rooibos, I drink chamomile, I drink lemongrass and ginger. I drink, all sorts of delicious.
There's the coffee world, there's decaf coffees that don't, they're using CO2 to extract it, which, CO2 is a chemical, but then in that case, water is a chemical.
Yeah, no.
So is there any sort of new emerging technologies in the tea world to make, first of all, to extract it without the use of chemicals, and secondly, that results in a delicious product?
I haven't had any delicious ones, and you do need to denaturize the leaf. And because coffee, in order to make it decaffeinated. There's no alternative in kind of flavors. But I think with teas, we've got so many, like a rooibos brewed strong is so delicious with milk. If you wanted a bedtime tea, like a English breakfast tea, you've got these amazing herbs that have no caffeine in them, and there's such a cornucopia of herbs that I would think we've got so much to play with. We don't really need to fuck around with the tea. Tea's got caffeine.
Yeah.
Wine's got alcohol. If you don't want an alcoholic drink, don't drink wine, I think.
Yeah, no, fair. You mentioned alcohol extraction. Let's delve into that a little bit more.
So if you put a tea into alcohol, alcohol is a solvent. It acts like boiling water, and it's so quick and so interesting. Like within a few seconds, you're going to get an extraction, like really a few seconds, especially again, if you've got high surface area to volume. So like a Earl Grey tea, I could extract for you now in like 45 seconds. We get a beautiful extraction of caramel and bergamot. Really in 45 seconds. And if we left it for 2 minutes, we would get, really rich burnt toffee. And then there's a point where suddenly, because the caramels, the carbohydrates dissolve first, then suddenly it becomes tannic. There's a point where the tannins suddenly go.
But you can avoid that if you want to, just by stopping the extraction.
Just being precise. And you can have all your stuff ready. So if you're extracting alcohol, you need to have your, do it where you can quickly strain it, so you're not like, oh, I've got to then find a strainer, because that next to 20 seconds, I like to do it with a straw and just taste it every 20 seconds and then find out where it is. And then
at which point you've drunk like 3 shots of vodka.
and then it's stable, right? That's the brilliant thing, is it's like a cold extraction stable for 3 or 4 days in the fridge. An alcohol extraction, if you can strain it finely enough, you don't want any particles, then it's stable forever.
Yeah.
And so you've got on the back bar a beautiful Earl Grey gin that you can make into martini.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of bars now are kind of labouring these, various preparation techniques, whether it's sous vide or it's rotovapes or it's...
and they just got maceration.
And
it's so easy.
You can just macerate it in there. It just seems so uncool, because everyone was macerating things into vodka back in, 25 years ago, and yet sometimes the easiest methods are the best.
It's funny, and also you using the word maceration is just a fancy word for infusion.
Yes.
Brewing. Yeah. We're brewing it.
Are we going to drink some gin now?
I just want to, where's the Earl Grey? There. This is the easiest one to do really quickly. I'll do it in the glass teapot so you can see. I usually use about 10 grams a litre, but I'm just going to make it a little...
Do you want to sit back down just so we can get you on camera doing it? Yeah.
Okay, so this is about 1 gram of tea. And then this is 25 ml of Beefeater gin in honour of the wonderful Desmond Payne.
It's 10 to 5 on a Friday, so this seems very appropriate.
Okay, so that's 25 ml of gin to 1 gram of tea. And you can see...
Wow, the colour, yeah.
It's already extracting. I mean, it's really extracting. And that's what... How many seconds do you think that is?
5-10 seconds, yeah.
Yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour some out. Obviously, we've got stronger dilution now, so it's not an exact science.
Yes, sure.
But every 10 seconds, you can see the colour change and the flavour will change. I should have done it into cups, thanks.
Yeah, another one. I'm going to do one more as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, a lovely, rich, golden colour now.
It's starting to look like a cup of tea, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it wouldn't do it that quick in cold water?
No, there would nothing. There would be absolutely no extraction at all in cold water. It would need hours. So if we can see in the cups, you'll see that's the... And now...
Do you find the colour in tea brewing tends to correlate to intensity of flavour?
Yeah, but apart from green teas where you've got it's just going to go more golden. Yeah, but in black teas, definitely. Yeah. Definitely. Okay, so...
Which order were these? That's the first one.
Can you reach?
I can reach, yeah. Okay, so this was 5-10 seconds.
Yeah.
Okay.
This was 5-10 seconds longer.
Oh yeah, the bergamot I think is starting to come in there.
And you're going to get more sweetness, right?
Yeah, and sweetness, yeah.
I also want to work with a tequila company, a very cool tequila company. There's this particular kind of tea that ages.
Oh, that's really starting to come through now. You're getting the actual black tea come through. Yeah.
What kind of flavors in the black tea? Caramels or?
Yeah, more. I guess like sort of slight dry. That dry. It's like slight tannin, you know, but also slightly earthy.
There's a point where the sugars really hit.
I think the sweetest one was the second one.
Yeah, maybe you're right. I don't know if that was that one, I think. No, that you're right. Yeah, that way. That's here. And then this is a really longer extraction.
The colour is beautiful on that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, and that's... Yeah, it's dry. It's really, really tasty. I mean, just that as a martini, like...
Just that as a martini, because you're adding sugar, because it's a plant and it's got carbohydrates in it. You're adding herbaceousness. You're adding a citrus.
So the vermouth role, really, isn't it? You just stir that down over ice and you'd be there, wouldn't you?
You just need the dilution. I just did an event.
And then you could do like a little... You've already got the bergamot in there, of course, but you could do like a zest of bergamot or lemon or whatever and to go with it.
It honestly is too much. It's so there. So I just did an event in Minotita's lovely little bar in Mexico City where we did just 3 martinis. I did one with Jasmine, one with Earl Grey, and I did a tequila. And
just because it's going to block the camera.
Oh, right. Yeah. And it was just, we just did the Earl Grey like that with the right amount of dilution. I wanted to have, I think, 20% rather than 30, just for the texture and the mouthfeel. It was so good. And the thing about tea that is this miracle thing is that when you dilute it down, like so that tea, that martini, which just neat gin and water and tea, they taste so soft, they're so smooth, they take the fire out of the alcohol. And you're just like, oh, you don't realize that you're drinking neat spirit. It does this softening, this kind of makes it much more approachable. And so it's dangerous. And also it's adding caffeine. So you're adding, it's like the thinking woman's vodka Red Bull.
I like that. What would be interesting is trying different spirits with different types of tea to see where the best pairings can be found. Because, I mean, gin is actually a pretty obvious one because, as you said, you've already got the botanicals almost sort of simulate certain flavors that you find in black tea, especially. And like
tequila, amazing. Mezcal, really. I was working with on a mezcal cocktail with Dick Bradsell when he died, and like that was hard to macerate, but we found an amazing pairing for it with rooibos. But everything else I can macerate in whiskey, everything. Apart, the only one that was like I'm not playing with maceration was mezcal. He was like, you can lengthen me, but you can't alter me. Yeah. And I think that's fair enough. But they really do work really well. And one thing I want bartenders to do is please don't use syrups because they are oxidizing. Like you can add sugar and you can have a cold extracted tea. You can have a concentration. You can't make it really concentrate because you need that osmosis needs enough dilution. I think you can only halve it you can only a third it. You can make a third 2 parts. You can make the concentration 3 times as long, but not further than that. But you can use that if you need a long stable tea, you just cold extract it and use that. And if you you want to add sugar, but don't think you can make a syrup.
Just do a syrup with tea. So you can cold extract it into the spirit and then you can sweeten the spirit.
Or you can cold extract it in water and add it as a lengthener. But
don't just cook it with water and sugar and tea because that's not going to be good.
No, it's pretty awful.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. It's not stable anyway. It's just, it could be good for 5 minutes when you taste it. And then by the time you're putting it in your drink, you've got something else. And by the time you're putting it in someone's drink 6 hours later, it's completely different.
What have we not covered here?
Oh my God, we've covered the thing. I think I really want people to think about what's happening in tea now, not in the past. There's a lot of talk about the history and colonialism. I think it's good that we didn't spend too much time on that because that is the past and it's not glorious, but it's a very fascinating economic story of how tea has traveled around the world and how it's influenced livelihoods and markets. But what is important is what it's doing now and what we can do. And there's such hope. We could change the fate of people's around the world. We're connected to them through our teacups right here and now. And if we can take responsibility for our relationship with them, it'll just flood your life with pleasure and it won't bankrupt you. It's a really virtuous circle of pleasure for everyone, and everyone benefits and nobody has to suffer. And it's an easy world to fix. In a world where we feel like, oh my God, I'm powerless. This world's fucked and there's nothing I can do and it's out of my hands. This is in your hands. This is in your hand every single day, probably 3 to 6 times a day if you're British.
Indeed.
6 cups a day that was the average of few years ago. I don't know what it is now, but if that's an average, God, how many people?
Some people must be chugging tea constantly, like if that's an average. Yeah.
I don't know. That's something that was the Tea Council or whatever. I mean, who knows how they measure those things? I'm sure we can't really know.
Yeah.
But it is it's the most drunk beverage in the world after water. And when people say, I'm making a documentary and we're getting funding for it, and it's such a battle to get the funding to make a documentary in this current climate. But also they say, oh, tea's a bit niche, isn't it?
Tea's niche.
No, Coca-Cola is niche in comparison with tea.
Yeah, that is really a kind of misplacing of the breadth of tea consumption and the way that it sort of it filters into society, especially
globally
here,
as well.
Globally, yeah, but
it's not. I mean, there's very few cultures that don't. I mean, I think perhaps Europe, continental Europe, we're not part of Europe anymore, so sadly. But I mean, there are parts of continental Europe where they only drink tea, like herbal infusions, and it's not very deep into the culture. But and the Americas have mate, yerba mate, which has its own. It's part of the tea family.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you love a bit of yerba mate?
Yeah, I've not really had much of it, I've got to say. But it's having a bit of a moment, I think, isn't it? As a sort of, I don't know, like a health thing.
Well, certainly in German clubbers have always had this like mate drink with sugar in it, and it's like it's like club mate they call it. It's been around for a while, but it's quite bitter, and you need to balance it out.
Is it Argentina? Does it come?
It comes from the area around Iguazu, so Paraguay, Argentina. What's the third country? Is it Chile? No, gosh. That's where stevia and lemon verbena all come from the same area in the Iguazu. Okay. I know it's Paraguay and Argentina. There's one other country, and I'm so sorry, South Americans, for not remembering what that third one is, but I hardly remember my own name most of the time, so my memory's just got so bad for words and names. I just lose words and names all the time.
Well, you've done very well today, I think, because that was
flavors.
a lot of information and just inspiring, I think, to sort of have I'm not unfamiliar with delicious tea, and I have tried quite a few of your teas in the past, and we've used them in the bars. So some of this doesn't come as too much of a surprise in terms of the sort of breadth of flavors and the quality that's there, and also the incredible attention to detail in terms of the farming practices that goes on is just remarkable. But thank you for telling this story and compressing it into a couple of hours as you've done, because it's such a big, wide world out there of tea, and hopefully people who've watched or listened to this will be inspired to. I mean, I'm going to have to go home and sort of guiltily throw away the tea bags that are lurking in the cupboard there, and start thinking a little bit more about it as a daily drinking thing rather than a sort of special occasion. Because I think as you correctly say, you only need to spend a few pence more per cup, and the level of quality increase is just dramatic. And then there's also the knock-on effects from the people who are actually growing it as well and getting compensated properly.
It's really good for you. I mean, there's nobody who's going to say, oh, tea's not good for you. There's no counter evidence. Like, there's a lot of people who say, it's detox, and it's like there's no such thing as a detox tea. All tea is going to be good for you. Like, I would choose a handcrafted tea over an industrial tea, thinking it's probably better for me. But otherwise, tea is just good.
Henrietta Lovell, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been brilliant. Thank you. I was actually thinking, shit, I'm not going to have anything to talk about.
Oh, no.